basically what we're interested in is your recollections of what happened, you know, in your youth and the things that, and I'll try to make them specific to you, about you and your situation and what it was. Don't hold back, don't worry about what you say. We're not gonna put anything on that's gonna make you look bad or sound bad. We edit everything that goes on, so that means we'll go and cut out the parts that,
Yeah, that's
you know,
right.
if you make a mistake, fine, that's no problem. We all
Well, I'm
do.
apt to make them, I'm sure.
Well, we're apt to make them too, so that's no problem. That's what we're saying. We have the power to make sure none of those mistakes anybody ever sees except us.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay,
Because I'm apt to make them. I'm a little nervous.
And don't try to make you a little less nervous, actually, if we possibly can. And
I didn't know it was going to be like this.
Talk loud, Alice.
oh no, you talk just your normal voice like you're talking right now. We more than pick you up. Okay. Miss Alice, first of all, let me ask a little bit about your background. Now, you grew up in Beaumont.
Yes.
Do you remember, let me ask you this, what do you remember about the year 1901 and when Spindletop, the Gusher, blew in Beaumont?
Well, when was that Gusher first struck? What, 1901?
1901.
Uh-huh. Well, we moved here just after that Gusher that came in. And we moved out what they called Spindletop at those days, in a big old house. And our father got into the liver stable building. Is that what you want me to tell you?
Sure.
Well, all right. My father opened a liver stable, run horse and buggy service from Beaumont to the field, and rented out to different people coming and going. My mother opened up. We had a very large house, 2-story, and my mother opened up a rooming at a boarding house, more like a little restaurant it was, because they ate all day long and fed the people coming and going, which was quite a few people out there at that time. And my father, of course, had this liver stable, run hack service from Spindletop to the South Park area, and wherever people wanted to rent horses and buggies, well, he rented them out to whatever purpose they wanted them for. And I went to school at South Park. First went to school at Spindletop, just in a little church, my first year. That later transferred to South Park School. Graduated from South Park School, high school. Well, you'll have to ask me questions.
Sure, I'm ready now. It's going to ask you, so your father knew that there was going to be some busy times here. Is that why he came?
Oh,
Because
yes.
He knew there was going to be
well,
business?
you know, when they first began to drill out there, that was, the news spread very fast, although that was slow times, of course. But that news didn't fly fast. And, of course, when Father heard that news, I could remember him saying to my mother, Polly Ann, get them kids ready, because we're going on to that Beaumont, and we're going to get some of that gold coming up out of that ground. And so the next day, we were ready to move over here, the day right after they thought they had struck oil out there. And my mother we found this big old house right in the middle of the field, almost. Right, Dirks was all around us later, you know. Mama decided she better do something too to get in all the money in. So she opened what she called a little restaurant in a ruined house. We lived downstairs, the family did, and had rented out the upstairs part to people, you know, sleeping overnight, coming flocking here because they were just sleeping anywhere they could find to sleep. That was busy people out there. A lot of people out there came at that time. I can remember as a child, we used to think it was a circus every day out there.
What made you think it was a circus? Just the
Well,
atmosphere of the people?
Well, there was so much activity, so much horses and buggies coming, wagons were coming in wagons, you know, with mules and teams like that, bringing equipment in and to from, you know, and bringing all that samples of oil out all the time. You just take it out every day, test it. I don't know where they took it to test it those days, but they were coming and going all the time, and all that road out there, in and out all the time, all day long, wagons. because that's mostly what they had. So my father decided he better get into it. So he opened up what he called a liver stable, and he run a hack service from Beaumont from Spindletop to Beaumont.
Do you remember how much he charged for his service?
Oh, well, no, I can't say I do. I don't. In fact, I don't think I ever knew, because I was still a child then.
Right.
And well, he charged plenty, because he was that giddy kind person. So he got plenty, or he wouldn't have done it.
Do you remember the type of people that you came in contact with as a
Well,
child?
we came in contact. Well, I tell you, it was all types. I want to tell you, and all nationalities. I never, just different people. Never heard so many different foreign languages in my life, if I can remember back. Of course, I talked about this later on in life, about so many, everybody of every nationality. We didn't have the colored people. There wasn't many. Well, in fact, they weren't allowed out there. They got so they barred them completely from coming to the hill. I don't know for what reason, but they did. But there was people from everywhere. You have no idea. Foreign countries even came out here. And my mother fed them, most of them. And she rented out the top part of the house, and we lived at the bottom part of it, the lower house, and had all different types of people.
Do you remember any of the particular people that lived upstairs? I mean, do they stick in your mind?
You mean their names?
Yeah, no, not necessarily their names, just
Well,
what kind of people they were and what they did.
Well, I guess there were a lot of people from the east came there. And of course, I don't know what they were doing back east, but we didn't have. I can't remember what any of them particular were. There were different salesmen and worked just ordinary jobs, I guess.
I just wondered if there were any particular characters that you remember that stick in your mind.
Oh, well, there was some fellow by the name of Gus Lunsford was a man who came from Massachusetts. He was an aristocrat, if there ever was one. And, boy, he taught us kids a lot of things. We learned a whole lot from him. He's a very smart man. And he lived at our house. And they had them from all walks of life. There was no distinction, but in all nationalities. And there was just a flock of everything and everybody out there. I think you could have said it. I guess it was well represented by all the different nations and nations.
Now, when your family moved out there, then there must not have been too many wells up. By the time
There
you
was.
got here, right?
No, I think after that first well came in, I think we were there by the time the third well was drilled, if I can remember correctly. I think we got, when that third well was drilled.
Was it a day and night, 24 hours, always something going on?
Always something going on. Yes, wild and woolly, if you want to call it that. Oh, yes, there was flocks of people come from everywhere. You're just all kinds of people, poor, rich, and otherwise, flocked to that. Because it was somewhat unusual. It was terrible to see that oil gushing out of that well.
Was it scary as a child?
Well, yes, it was. Well, our children are not scared, you know. We as children weren't scared. We were little daredevils. We didn't have a scared child in our family. But of course, some children would get frightened about it. But that's what excited us. That's what we liked. See, we liked all that excitement as kids. We were old Hawk. My father got in the liver stable business, driving hack service from Spindletop to Beaumont to Port Arthur, wherever anybody wanted to go around it with the air that he had read about on Sunday to the boys to take the gals out riding, you know. And of course, Mama had this big boarding house. We got a lot of famous people at that time. I can't remember all their names. But there were lots of people. Lots of foreign people came here, too. Right. Foreign countries were here, too. Some of the big shots, I guess, from there. But
do you remember was it real crowded? Was it?
Oh, it was crowded. Oh, yes, I slept on the ground, sleep anywhere you could get. He sure was sick for a mighty long time.
You were telling me that it was fun and it was scary at the same time.
This what, honey?
I said you were telling me that it was kind of fun as a kid to be out there because of all the things that you saw, and you guys weren't scared as children.
No, we weren't frightened. No. That was just our dish. We weren't scared of nothing. We'd stay right on that well where they had a time keeping us off of it. I've been up the top of them when I was, I guess I was about 8 years old. I'm at the top of them derricks. I mean, so way up to the top of them, and they were tall. And we weren't scared kids.
There were lots of them out there, weren't there? I mean,
Well, yes, there were quite a few people flocked there. They were sleeping in tents and on the ground and most anywhere, housing, because they didn't have any, had to build. We had all we could take care of.
no, not everybody was an oil field worker that came out
No,
to Spindletop, were they?
No, they didn't all go to work. Some of them didn't stay very long. They didn't like it, It's a little rough for some of them. They couldn't tough it out.
Did you see, I mean, were there all kinds of characters? Some characters that perhaps were a little bit shady?
Oh, yes, we had them crooks just like you got them today. They've been with us always, haven't they? Yeah, they would steal.
Was there honor among oilmen, though? I mean,
Beg pardon?
was there honor among oilmen? Was a handshake as good as its
Oh,
word, or was it?
No, I imagine it was. I don't think things was rough between the ordinary people that lived there. Sometimes it get a little bit rough. The strangers that would come there, try to hook you in onto something that somebody's already trying to get himself, We'd have a little trouble that way. Had to get the law then. We didn't have much law. He was the most frightened man I've ever seen. He should have been a priest instead of a lawman.
What was his name? Do you remember?
I wish I could call his name. No, I can't remember his name. He was more scared than it was anything. He wasn't any good. The kids were better than he was. It wasn't as rough as people made it out to be, as tough as they made it out to be. It was a lot of pleasure out there. We had a lot of church meetings, a lot of Salvation Army people came. And you know how people travel around in tents and preach, those days. Well, we had a lot of that. And we had churches out there. Had a Methodist and a Baptist church, I remember. And it wasn't such a rough place to live. Of course,
This was in Spindletop, you're talking
that's
about.
on Spindletop, yeah. Right down in the middle. We was right in the middle of all the oil field houses, oil wells all around us. Yeah, right in the middle of it.
How did people react when they came out to see the oil wells themselves? A lot of people I know came here. What did they?
Oh, they just came out there in droves. They rode horses, they came in buggies, then they walked. People just flocked there from everywhere. We just had, Mama couldn't feed them all with this. Now you just had, she was at the only boarding house there. People where they could get food, to eat, and stay all day. Now, just come out there in droves.
And they came just to see the Gushers?
Just to see the Gushers and see the well, sure. It was a sight to hold. Of course, I didn't appreciate it when I was a kid, but later on in life I did appreciate what it was, because it was a sight. There's no doubt of that.
There was a lot of danger.
Oh, yes, there was
wasn't
danger
there?
around there. Yes, there was. Well, it still is danger around all wells. Yeah, you could fall in that slush bowl, which one man did. Scalded him to death. My mother pulled him out of it. I had a brave mother. He fell off slipped off of the derrick. The derrick was greasy and wet, and he slipped off of the derrick. And they had what they called a slush pit, a hole dug on the side of the ground to catch all that stuff that they did. It wouldn't put with the oil, but it came up before the oil did. All this slush and mess come up off the ground. Then the oil, they just struck the oil, and we had to have a ditch alongside the well there for that to flow into, keep it off the derrick floor. And he slipped off the derrick floor into that pit, and my mother pulled him out. My mother wrapped a blanket. I can remember that. Y'all not interested in that, are you?
Sure.
My mother wrapped a blanket around her arms and had to pull that man out of that slush pit. He lived, by the way, but he was down for a long, long time. And that Hotel Dew then was just opening up when they took him to the Hotel Dew. They were just beginning to open up that little hotel they had, little hospital they had.
On weekends or during the week, would you make a trip into town?
Oh, yes. We'd make a Port Arthur. We'd go to Galveston, down on the beach and go to Galveston, all down the beach. Yeah, on weekends we went places like that. Circuses all came to town. We seen everything. We didn't miss anything.
Do you remember when they built the pipeline to Port Arthur? from the oil field?
Well, I wouldn't say I could exactly remember where they built it. I know they piped it out of there for a while, but I don't remember just where they. I don't remember them building a pipeline, no.
Right.
But I'm sure they did. They got it out of there somewhere, so they had to get the pipeline. Put it in tanks, pumped it in tanks, barrels, and everything else.
Were there big barrels and big tanks just sitting everywhere there on top of the hill?
Yeah, everywhere. Everybody at their house had it. We all had it all around the house. Everybody had them. We all had it. We had all kinds of tanks and tubs and things full of oil. It was ridiculous, but it was there.
Did people look at it as being black gold?
They called it black gold. Yeah, sure they did. Well, they made money. Well, it was sold like hotcakes. There were those bigger companies. See, now the Gulf and all those larger oil companies, they didn't come that. Most all that first oil, it was done by just small individual people. It wasn't done by the big companies like they are today. It was done by several people that drilled on their old piece of little land they had staked off. They never did buy it. You just moved on it and took it. I know we didn't buy ours, and I don't think anybody else did either. You just took up a abode there. Yeah, I even tried to drill a well myself. Or see if I could get some oil on that land.
Did you have any luck?
No. Kids, you know, they would have known it if they'd hit oil. But we had a lot of fun trying.
Was your father ever tempted to do anything besides just the livery stable?
Oh, yes. He gambled a whole lot. Used to disappear from home for about 3 months every year, go down to Mexico, some places, not only more. My daddy was a gambling man.
He had a saloon for a while, didn't he?
Huh?
He had a
Oh,
saloon.
we had a sloot, yes, we had run a sloot. Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. We had a sloot. And he had, took care of a lot of drunks.
Was the saloon there with the restaurant that your mother owned?
No, my mother had the restaurant, but my mother wouldn't have had no saloon around her. But Papa had a saloon, liver stable, a saloon. And old Doc Thomas had it too. I don't know if you ever heard of him.
Sure.
Have you?
Uh-huh.
Well, he was out there. And one of the Baconstein boys was out there. I can't remember which one. And Cook Wilson family was out there at that time. George Anson. You know any of those names?
Sure, they're all familiar names.
Are they?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Well, they flocked out there. Everybody got rich off of that first time of that oil company. Then the big companies began to come in and they ruined their play, you know. They took over. But the little man, he got his at first. But then he didn't have the money. You know, like you and me, we wouldn't have the money to drill like those bigger companies did. Got so the bigger companies came in, like Gulf and Texaco and all those companies. They began to come in there and take over, which we all know they did. They're still here too, aren't they?
Were some people mad because the big oil companies came in and ran off the little man?
Well, sure, you'd get mad if somebody take money away from you, or take that liquid gold, as they called it, away from you. You'd get mad too, wouldn't you? You would had a lot of fights and shootings out and everything. Yeah, sure. You'd get mad too. Somebody come try to approach on your land that you squatted on yourself. You wanted. Nobody bought anything. There didn't nobody buy any of that land out there. We didn't, and we lived out there for years. We never bought no land. We just lived there. Never paid no rent or nothing else. Nowadays, if you live on it, you got to pay a little rent. But we didn't want no such thing. You just picked you out of sight you wanted to live on, you build a house on it. That's what's always to it.
Do you remember any of the people, like, as a child, do you remember seeing maybe Mr. Lucas or Mr. Higgins? Did they?
Well, yes, I expect I did see them, but I don't remember as really being personal with the friends, though. You know what I mean? Not to that extent. But I'm bound to run into them because we were pushy kids.
Pushy kids.
Well, we wanted to know everything. Yeah, yes, I pushed for everything. I wanted to know why that oil was that way and how come they could get it that way. I used to run them crazy, asking them 9 million questions. Well, what's this pump? What's this for? Well, where's this oil going and what's this going to Yeah, it's crazy. I wanted to know where it was going, where it was coming from.
Now,
Curious.
it got to be a point where there were so many wells out there, I understand, that you could just about walk and never touch the earth, that it was all boards and derricks. And
Yeah, that's right. Oh, yes. It flourished something terrible for the first few years. Then we get dwindled out just like all the rest of them did. Got down to more normal places. But yes, everybody was trying to drill a well, have a oil well.
Do you remember any of the fires as a child? Because I understand that was a particular problem.
Well, we had several terrible fires out there. Those two people got burned up in one of them. Terrible fires out there. Something exploded at once. I can't remember if it was in the pipeline area or what area that was, but I have a faint recollection of it been an explosion out there at one of those lines. I don't know if it was the oil line or underground or the top. I just can't seem to remember.
Right.
But they did have it, I know.
Did your mom ever say anything about let's gather up the kids, or were they worried about the fires
Well,
burning down the restaurant? Or
sure, your mother cautions her children, you know. We were told not to do this, not strike matches, not get around these tanks and things like that. But you keep a bunch of lively kids like there was 8 of us, and you try to control 8 kids. Had an awful time. My poor mother did. Yeah.
tell me a little bit. Oh, okay.